In this video, we're going to go over an overview of the extended response, which is the essay portion of the GED Language Arts test. Please note that this is episode 1. I'm actually going to do a couple more episodes to look at this in greater detail and help you with some of the skills you need. Now, it is true that you can skip this section and still pass the test, but most people who skip it end up just barely not passing. What I tend to see is students score somewhere between 140 and 144 when they skip the writing section. So I really recommend that you try to do it. Most students are intimidated by this section at first. You don't write a lot outside of high school, and it's a little scary to write an essay, especially if it's been a few years. But if you actually prepare well, it's pretty easy. It's truly not a hard essay to write. It's just your fear sometimes gets in the way. So what happens in this section? It's always the same. I promise you, always the same. You have 45 minutes. You'll have 2 passages to read. Each one will take a position on the same topic. So 2 different viewpoints, same topic. All you have to do is read them, then decide which passage makes the stronger argument, and then you write an explanation of why one position is better argued than the other. Really simple. And again, always the same. So this is not about you. Don't share your own opinion on the topic, even if you have strong feelings about it. They don't care. What do they want from you? They want 4 to 7 paragraphs, 3 to 7 sentences per paragraph, 300 to 500 words total. If you don't write very often, that sounds like a lot, but I promise you, it's actually really easy to write that much. You need to be specific. You need to give examples from both passages and be organized and smooth in your writing. Part of that is you need to use transition words, which we'll talk about later. How the section is graded. Your writing must be organized. That's 1/3 of the grade. Your writing must follow the rules of written English. So if you have prepared by studying for the language section of the test, you should be able to get points on this section. Finally, you must prove which position is stronger using evidence from both passages. So that's 3 areas in which they're going to grade you. It's worth 6 points total, 2 points for each of these aspects. So when they talk about your writing must be organized, here's what they want. They want you to begin with an introduction paragraph that clearly states which position is stronger. That's super important. You then need to spend the next 3 paragraphs or more, but let's just shoot for 3, proving exactly what you just said. They also want you to use transition words as you move between ideas and paragraphs. Again, we'll talk more about transition words later. And they want you to end with a conclusion paragraph that reviews what you just said. Now, I have a basic essay outline that you can memorize because the essay is always the same, even if the topic is different. It's always the same thing that you're doing, so you can memorize one general outline and use it for any essay topic you end up with. How cool is that? As I said, your writing must follow the rules of written language, so here's what they're looking for there. They want you to write in complete sentences with correct sentence structure. In other words, no run-ons, no fragments, follow grammar. They want you to use correct punctuation, capitalize the first word of every sentence, use proper grammar, and do your best to spell words correctly. Finally, they want you to prove which position is stronger using evidence from both passages. So what does that look like? Well, you need to clearly say which passage makes a stronger argument. And you can do that by literally writing, passage number 1 makes the stronger argument, or passage number 2 is better argued than passage number 1. There's lots of ways you can word that. They want you to use exact details from both passages to prove which one is stronger. And if you're a weak writer, you can even just directly quote from the passage. They want you to explain exactly why the weaker position is weaker. So, those are the things that you have to do. Now, for that middle section, writing incomplete sentences, using correct punctuation, capitalizing the first word, using proper grammar, if you've studied language well, you should do absolutely fine on those points. If you've done the work preparing for the language section of the test, this is a pretty easy 2 points. So where we need to focus then is on these other points. I'm not going to go over the stuff related to language in this series of lessons because that's better prepared for by preparing for the language section. So these are the things that we're going to try to accomplish through these lessons over the essay. Beginning with an introduction and ending with a conclusion, if you have done those 2 things, then you have also already accomplished saying which passage makes a stronger argument. So that right there is at least 1 point and maybe even 2. So you really only need to focus on these 6 tasks. And if you follow my notes chart and outline and consider memorizing them, these will not be hard things to do. But you're probably wondering, how do I get everything done in 45 minutes? That's where a magical thing known as time management comes in. Here's how I recommend you use your time. Spend about 15 minutes reading the 2 passages and taking excellent notes. It's very important that you take notes. You don't want to depend on your memory because you're going to be stressed and you're going to be nervous. And some of you are going to feel like spending 15 minutes just on reading and note taking is horribly scary because it only leaves you 30 minutes to write. Trust me, if you follow my advice, it's enough time. You're going to then, after 15 minutes, type the outline from memory as fast as you can. And what I mean by that is literally memorize my suggested essay outline, type it out really quick, and then all you got to do is fill it in. Hopefully, if you memorize it well, you can type it in like a minute. You're going to spend the next 25 minutes typing up your essay, replacing each section of the outline with text as you come to it. And I will go over in more detail how to do that. Finally, you'll spend your remaining few minutes reading and polishing your essay. Now, if worst comes to worst and it takes you super long to write, you may have to skip that 4th part. But if you practice, you should be able to get it down to a science where you've got at least 2 minutes where you can reread and polish. Hopefully you have a bit more than that. So before we go further, why don't we try an example? Let's look at a little story. His Royal Highness, King Luther of Fredonia, has a lovely daughter, Princess Isabella. The king is currently seeking a suitable husband for his only daughter. 2 princes have arrived to seek the fair hand of Princess Isabella. But which prince makes the best argument for why he should be chosen? Let's look at their arguments. I am Prince Frederick of Lith. You should marry your daughter to me because we will look very stylish in our royal wedding portrait together. I'm quite handsome, as you can see, and I appreciate beauty. You'll have stunning grandchildren. Since we're cousins, we already know each other's families well. And of course, my country will do many great things for your country. All right, let's see what the other prince has to say. I, Prince Hayden of Genlydia, am the prince your daughter should marry. Your kingdom needs an ally against Strangia. As it happens, my country also hates them. My country has a surplus of grain, which you desperately need. We will happily buy your wool, which we need. And I am not at all related to your daughter, which means we can diversify the gene pool and have healthier heirs. Well, they both make compelling arguments. But the princess thinks one prince probably makes a fairly better argument than the other prince does, and I agree with her. So let's consider together which prince makes the best argument. All right, so we got our two princes, we've got their two arguments. We have Prince Frederick of Lith in the teal. We have Prince Hayden of Genlydia in the gold. So to start with, Prince Frederick of Lith is a prince. That's crucial. Prince Hayden of Genlydia, also a prince. Well, they meet the most basic qualification. Prince Frederick makes the point that because he's handsome and the girl is rather pretty, they'll have a good wedding portrait. He also argues that they will have attractive grandchildren for the king. He points out that the families already know each other since they're cousins. And he makes the claim, my country will do many great things for your country. Meanwhile, Prince Hayden, he points out that he can provide an ally against an enemy country because his country and Elisabella's country share the same enemy of Strangia. He points out that his country has a surplus of grain, which Elisabella's country needs. His country needs wool, which gives Elisabella's country a place to sell their wool, thereby making money. And he points out that because he is not related to Princess Elisabella, they'll have genetic diversity, which would be better for the health of their future heirs. So, good wedding portrait, that's specific. Attractive grandchildren, that's specific. Families know each other, specific claim. An ally, that's a good specific claim. The grain is a specific claim. Place to sell the wool is a specific claim. Genetic diversity is a specific claim. But my country will do many great things for your country is not a specific claim. That is quite general and leaves a lot up to opinion. It doesn't really give you any base on which to evaluate it. All right, so far, one prince has made 3 specific claims. The other prince has made 4 specific claims. Now let's consider fact versus opinion. So, Prince Frederick, well, the wedding portrait being good is a matter of opinion. Attractive grandchildren, that's also an opinion. The families know each other, that's a fact. And my country will do many great things for your country, that is a matter of opinion. All right, over to you, Prince Hayden. Ally against enemy country, that is a fact. We can actually prove that both of these countries hate Strangia and that they can ally together. His claim that his country has a surplus of grain, your country needs it, that's a fact. You can easily prove whether or not that is true. His country being a place to sell wool, that is a fact. And finally, his claim of genetic diversity, that's a fact, because you can prove that the two families are not related, and you can scientifically prove that it's a good idea to have genetic diversity. So, one prince has given you 3 opinions and 1 fact. The other prince has given you 4 facts. So if we were to write this out in notes, Our issue is that the kingdom of Fredonia needs to select a husband for his daughter, and he has two options, Prince Frederick or Prince Hayden. Prince Frederick argues that he is the best candidate. The strengths of his argument: he gives 4 examples of how he is the best candidate. 3 of his examples are specific. In his argument, he focuses on ways he can make the king happier, which is valid. Now, the weakness is only one of his examples is a fact, the others are all opinions. One of his examples is vague, will do many great things for you, that's too vague. None of his examples actually show a clear benefit for the kingdom, however. That's a pretty big weakness. Prince Hayden, meanwhile, argues that he is the best candidate. His strengths: he gives 4 specific examples to show why he is the best candidate. All 4 examples are facts. He shows how he can benefit the kingdom militarily with an ally against Strangia, and economically, place to trade with grain and the selling of the wool. And he shows how he can make the royal bloodline healthier by not being a cousin. Now, weakness: he could have had an even stronger argument if he gave some actual proof of his claims, like maybe giving some numbers. Your country stands to gain this many $1 million in trade, or this percentage of your citizens would be safer if we ally with you against Strangia. So, which prince makes the better argument? Well, pretty easy answer, right? Prince Hayden has the best argument for why he should marry the princess, because his examples are specific and factual. Also, he shows how marriage to him benefits the whole kingdom. You two shall make a fine royal couple, and I am thrilled with this new alliance. Aw, one poor prince is left out. So what did we just do there? When we looked at these 2 princes, we just evaluated 2 people's argumentation, which is exactly what you need to do on the essay. So, argumentation is the assumptions, claims, support, reasoning, and credibility upon which someone builds their position. And that's what you'll do in your essay. You'll consider 2 passages, both of which take a position on the same issue. You'll analyze the strengths and weaknesses of each. You'll decide which one makes the stronger argument, and you'll explain your reasoning, just like we just did. And most importantly, you will not include your own opinion about the topic because they don't care. But how do you write an organized essay that's long enough? 4 to 7 paragraphs? 3 to 7 sentences per paragraph? 300 to 500 words total? How? It's actually not that hard. As I said before, start by taking good notes. This is your best weapon, good notes. Not enough notes equals bad essay. It's really, really hard, especially if you're a weak writer, to write a good essay if you don't have detailed notes. Careful detailed notes equals good essay. My advice to you is memorize my notes chart for the best results. I'm going to show it to you in just a minute. If you can memorize it and then just copy it out on a piece of scratch paper as soon as you get to this section of the test, you'll be able to write decent notes. And that will help you so much on writing a good essay. Also, make sure to organize your essay using a simple 5-paragraph foolproof format. I am providing an outline for you. Now, my essay outline is geared towards a weaker writer. If you're a strong writer, you might not need to do this. But I'm focused on people who struggle with writing and trying to make it as simple and easy as possible for them. The essay that I'm going to show you how to write is not a brilliant college level essay. It's a decent, clear essay that will get you through the GED. If you go on to college after this, you need to work on strengthening your writing further because this essay won't be enough to get you through college. It'll help you out freshman year, but you got to get stronger at writing beyond that for most programs. So, remember that you need to memorize the notes chart for best results and memorize the outline for best results. Memorize those two things and you will win the extended response section. You will be its master. Here's the notes chart I want you to memorize. All you need to do is draw yourself a little table like this. Passage number 1, passage number 2. You're going to compare the two of them. Here's what you need to compare. What is their position? So in other words, what is each one arguing? Are they for or against, for example? What are the credentials of the people that are writing these passages? So, for example, do they come from a career that might give them some special expertise? Or have they personally experienced the topic they're writing about? What qualifies this person to speak about this topic? Then you want to count how many facts each of them use in their argument. Literally, just go through, tally mark, 1, 2, 3. Do the same thing with opinions. Write little tally marks for how many opinions they use. That's the easiest way to look at it and see who uses more facts, who uses more opinions. The person who uses more facts has the stronger argument. Opinions are a weak way to argue. We want facts. Then look at the evidence. So you could put a tally mark for how many pieces of evidence they use, or you could make a little note of what evidence they use, what type of evidence. Other strengths, anything you notice that makes the argument stronger. Other weaknesses, anything else that makes it weak. You might find it helpful to put some little lines in here. So, summarize in one sentence person number 1's position. Summarize in one sentence person number 2's position. Now, I strongly recommend that you write this out in a complete sentence because that way you can just copy this word for word into your essay once you start typing up your essay. That's going to make it a lot easier to go from notes to essay. Because remember, you want to be as effective as possible with your time management. So to give you an example, you could say position number 1 argues in favor of blah, blah, blah. Position number 2 argues in opposition to blah, blah, blah. There's many ways you can write that. And I'm going to show you some examples in a future video. For credentials, think about the person's career, their education. Again, anything that qualifies this person to speak on this topic, because that's something that you can use to argue that one is stronger or one is weaker. For your facts, just use little tally marks to count how many facts you find. Same with opinions. Let's see who has the most facts, who has the most opinions. For the evidence, you could just do little tally marks, but what would be a lot more helpful when you're writing is to list each one and be specific. So this person as a piece of evidence uses this statistic, or they use this story of something personally that they experienced, which someone could actually verify happened. List any strengths, be specific. List any weaknesses, be specific. The more specific and detailed you are in the notes, the easier it's going to be when you get to actually typing up your essay. But what if you suck at writing? How on earth are you supposed to write this thing? Well, that's why I have developed the simple essay for weak writers. Again, if you're a really strong writer, you probably don't need this, but most people are going to be a bit weak at writing because you haven't done it much since high school. You may not have done it much in high school. So I have prepared a simple, foolproof 5-paragraph essay. How long does the essay need to be? 3 to 7 paragraphs. If you follow my model, you're right in the middle with 5 paragraphs. Perfect. So here's what you need. Introduction. You are going to answer the questions. What is the issue or topic that these people are discussing? What does position number 1 argue? What does position number 2 argue? Which position is stronger? Second paragraph, you're going to talk about the 2 positions. What are the 2 positions? Describe and summarize position number 1. Describe and summarize position number 2. In your third paragraph, you're going to explain why one position is stronger. Which position is stronger and why? What is a specific example of this? What is another specific example of this? Fourth paragraph, why one position is weaker. Which position is weaker and why? What is a specific example of this? What is another specific example of this? Finally, your 5th paragraph is your conclusion. Which position is stronger? What were the big reasons why this position was stronger? What was the big reason or big reasons why the other position was weaker? So, you can easily memorize these 5-paragraph labels. Now, the questions that you answer in each of your paragraphs might be harder for you to memorize, but if you've got a good memory and you can memorize that too, that is a huge leg up when you start writing. At the very least, though, just memorize the 5 labels to the paragraphs. And that right there is going to help you because now you have an organized essay. All you got to do is fill it in. Let's look a little bit closer at each of these paragraphs. So, your introduction. The purpose of the introduction is to tell your reader a quick summary of exactly what you are about to explain to them in the rest of the essay. It's a preview. It's kind of like when they make a trailer about a movie to interest you in going to see it or streaming it. The trailer's giving you a summary of the movie. That's basically what you're doing in your introduction. So, what is the issue or topic? In one sentence, just one sentence, tell the reader what issue the 2 positions are discussing. Now, if you want to write more than one sentence here, you can, but it will serve absolutely no purpose and have no benefit and generally be a waste of your time because all you need is just one sentence introducing it. What does position number 1 argue? In one sentence, tell the reader who wrote this position and what their argument is. So you can just summarize, for example, Dr. So-and-so, a medical doctor, argues blah, blah, blah. Or Madeline Whippersnapper, a teacher with 10 years experience, argues blah, blah, blah. That's how you can do it. Again, just do one sentence. If you absolutely need to, you can put it in 2 sentences, but it's going to be much stronger if you can just write one sentence about it. Then, what does position number 2 argue? In one sentence, tell the reader who wrote this position and what their argument is. Finally, which position is stronger? In one sentence, tell the reader which position is stronger. See how this introduction is basically a summary of the entire essay that you're about to write. And if your introduction is done properly, you can do this whole thing in just 4 sentences. It's not that hard. How many sentences do they want per paragraph? 3 to 7. If you follow this, you've got 4 sentences. That is a perfectly happy little paragraph. So moving on, your first body paragraph covers the two positions. So you want to introduce them each and explain what they are. So what are the two positions? In one sentence, you want to tell what the two positions are, who wrote each. Describe and summarize position number 1. In 2 to 3 sentences, explain position number 1. What does it argue? What are its main points? Tell a little bit about it. Then you're going to do the same thing with position number 2. 2 to 3 sentences, explain position 2. I recommend shooting for 2 to 3 sentences about each paragraph instead of just 1, because that way you end up with about a 5-sentence paragraph, and that's a nicer paragraph. Otherwise, you're only going to have a 3-sentence paragraph, which is kind of bare minimum. And it's really important that you explain the two positions well so that you can get full credit on this. Now moving on, your next body paragraph, why one position is stronger. In this paragraph, you'll prove that one position is stronger than the other. So you start by explaining which position is stronger and why. In 1 to 2 sentences, flat out tell the reader, position 1 or position 2 is stronger because blah, blah, blah. If you can do that in 1 sentence, awesome. If it's easier for you to explain this in 2 sentences, also awesome. Now you're going to give a specific example of how this how this position does something well. So a specific example from what the person wrote, and you can quote directly if you need to. So as an example of how this person uses specific evidence, they cite from 3 different medical studies. What's another specific example of how this position is stronger? Blah, blah, blah. Again, in a future video, I'm going to show you some specific examples of how to do this. The next body position is very similar to the last one, except you're showing why one position is weaker. So you're literally going to do almost the exact same thing you just did, only this time, which position is weaker and why. 1 to 2 sentences, say which position is weaker, list 1 to 3 big reasons why, give a specific example, give a specific example. It's very important that you be as specific as possible and tie it directly to what you read. Again, I'm going to show you examples of how to do this in another video. Finally, you wrap things up with your conclusion. Your conclusion is a review of what you just told the reader. It's kind of like you're grabbing hold of the reader and going, all right, listen, let's go back over what I just told you. So you're going to say which position is stronger. In 1 sentence, remind the reader which position is the stronger one. You can literally rewrite basically the exact same sentence that you wrote earlier in your introduction, just reword it a tiny bit. What were the big reasons why this position was stronger? So summarize the biggest strengths of the position in 1 to 2 sentences. And then what was the big reason why the other position was weaker? Summarize the biggest weaknesses of this position in 1 to 2 sentences. And I would recommend try to aim for 2 sentences in summary of each of the positions, because that way your conclusion would be 5 sentences long, and that's a good strong size for a conclusion. But if the best you can do is 1 sentence each, that's fine. 3 sentences is still a legitimate length for a paragraph. So in part 2, a separate video, I'm going to write a sample essay with you, and I'll show you some examples of how you can say things. Be confident. You got this. Anybody can write this essay. All right? I'll see you again in the next video.